OG boy.
David, when did you join Kawowo?
Late 2011.
2011?
That was a long time ago.
Okay.
long ago.
No, I'm trying to remember where I was in 2011. I'm trying to remember where I was in 2011.
2011.
Your earliest memories of Kawowo, you're sort of one of the founders. Or how do you get to join Kawowo? Maybe let's start the conversation from there.
We are on now, eh? We are on.
We are recording. That's why we are recording.
My earliest memories at Kawowo Sports date, I think 12 years ago. That time we were still having 2 rooms, and virtually, when I recall deep down, it is a long story that could even detail like 48 hours, 2 days.
We have less than an hour.
But how did you join Kawowo? Or how does Kawowo find you for you to be part of their team?
On the advent of social media, I was still at Nkumba University. I was playing football, Masaza Cup. 2011, we won. We played the final. I played for a number of Masaza teams, Busiro, Kochi, Bulemezi. By that time, I was playing for Bulemezi. We played in the final. We lost to Bururi 1-0 at Nachivubo, when it was still green. Now it is an artificial turf. I was still in school. Then I had a friend of mine. He also worked here, called Bryson Mugote. He spoke to Joseph, the director. Then we started contributing stories via email. The first time my story was published, I think Clive sent me the link. I was very happy.
Sent you a link to your story?
Yes. It was about promotion of Nkumba University, my former team, to the big league, to the regional league, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that one. Chisano crosses to newly promoted Membe City Football Club. From our archives, we picked up that story that was written on January the 14th.
Chisano Joachim.
Yeah. 2014. January 14th, 2014. That was one of your first stories on Kawowo Sports.
Yes, previously I used to do a lot of, because I was a footballer, I had a bias for football, but I used to do volleyball. I would once in a while chip in with rugby, volleyball, cricket, and an assortment of games, because that time we were starting up social media and it wasn't very vibrant. People used to know the New Vision, Daily Monitor, UBC. Everything was new. I remember going to Nachivubo Stadium one day. They asked me, "Where are you going? Which company do you work for?" I told them Kawowo Sports. But Kawowo Biebichi.
We were now.
Everyone was shocked. Kawowo Biebichi. I told them it's an online website. That time we were doing Bakar, because they would have 2 games at 2 and at 4 at Nachivubo Stadium. So virtually breaking through it wasn't very easy. Especially one time I went to a volleyball press conference at Lugogo. But because some of the players, most of them are retired now, one of them is playing Dickens Otim, and Jensen Chesit. Some of them knew me from Nkumba University. So they somehow accommodated me, but it wasn't an easy road. But now, a press conference starts without Kawowo Sports. It can't. Today there was a golf press conference. They had to wait for Kawowo Sports to first report. Even if they have an official media partner in NBS, they had to first wait Kawowo Sports to happen.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Trendsetters. Obugalo for David Isabirye, guys. And how far we've come. That's how we're starting the weekly Wowos this time. It's we've started on a how do they call it? Down memory lane, yes, with David Isabirye, who's our guest this week on the weekly Wowos. I'm your usually weekly host, Dennis Musali, and I'm here with my usual suspects, Ernest Akwarebirunji, a rugby expert.
I'm sorry for coming late.
A rugby expert, really. And Franklin Kaweru, who's the editor of Kawowo Sports. And our guest this week is a man who's written over 12,000 stories on Kawowo Sports.
When David started writing for Kawowo Sports, that story that you mentioned about Chisano is from January 2014. I was in Form 6.
Our producer Fred, when he was pulling it up, Fred said he was at uni. Franklin, where were you?
I was at Kawowo, of course.
Okay. 2014. I'm trying to remember.
There was an earlier story.
Yeah.
I think he can get it. It was about the former FUFA finance director. He's called Francis. It's called Chimuli. It caused fracas at FUFA. I wrote about FUFA director, FUFA official, top FUFA official, steals a football club. It caused fracas even up
Which
to now.
Which football club was that?
Entebbe FC. So Mr. Chimoli, wherever he would meet me, he would say, you tarnished my name. That time he was an auditor at State House. Now he's an auditor in oil and gas. But he was the FUFA director for many years in charge of finances. So that was one of my first stories. I think 2012.
2 years before that. So maybe this is
last week
like
when
on a different side. No?
When we had Kyle was banned from
covering Stara. I think
the football guys like a lot of violence.
I think it's a journalism thing. If you've not made some people uncomfortable, if you've not made the powers that be uncomfortable, you might be doing more PR than journalism.
I think David, do you agree?
Yes, surely, especially if you are crossing wings with football administrators, rather sports administrators
in general.
Most of them would wish to turn to be by your side. When you are doing something professional in the right line, they may think you are maybe fighting them.
There is one administrator just on your right.
Is attacking me.
I put on my Cricket Cranes replica to celebrate with you, Mr. Musali.
Okay.
So when David talks about starting out in 2011, obviously before WordPress became a thing, there was Joomla. Joomla, so migrating from Joomla to WordPress, of course some content was lost along the way too.
Yeah.
So especially the photos. Most of the photos, when you are searching up those earlier stories, the photos are not showing up.
Not showing, and
but
of course
still,
the links change as well.
But still, personally, I think it's a big milestone for Kawowo Sports having those stories. Of course, New Vision had been publishing their stories online, but Kawowo sending the trend, whichever sport, it was a step in the right direction for the online media.
Yeah, and David, since you're one of the guys who've been with the team from the beginning, if you look back the now and then, how do you compare the two, the different times that Kawowo has been through to now being in a position where if we're not there, then the person who is in charge of the press conference wants to wait, wait for the Kawowo guys to get here and then we go.
Of course, it has been a long journey. It has been a long journey, especially in the online media industry. Personally, it has been a career growth. I remember when we started here at Kawowo, there was no salary. One time, the boss could opt out and say, maybe we can share this, because we had no sponsor, and he had the hope. Mr. Joseph Owino had the hope. One day, a sponsor would come by, and that is when MTN came on board. Back then, and many others have fallen suit. But remember those days without salary. I think there were 2 years. But on December, Mr. Joseph would give us a token, 200 or 300 per se. Then 2014, we made our first trip outside Uganda by road. It was Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup. And everyone was surprised. How can people write on Facebook? They were telling us write on Facebook. How can people who write on Facebook go and cover Sakafa?
Okay.
In fact, the tournament was played over in Nairobi and Mombasa. You know, Mombasa is very far from Nairobi. So they could even, we were surprised how they met us in Mombasa still, covering with ISMA. So since 2014, our life never remained the same. When sponsors came, we got a small pay, and the man has kept increasing until 6 figures.
You're making colleagues. I think Joseph, the money will come. Joseph, must have spoken to the team those days. Colleagues, the money will come.
Yeah, he had the belief.
And the money has come.
Of course, we had to pile up the stories. You know, with the websites, someone can search with whichever thing he wants. Some people can be looking for the best right backs in the country, and you have to search that information online. Someone can have interest in netball, picking out the best shooters over the years, and you don't have it. So we had to first pile up the information, and of course build trust. Whichever radio stations would want news in the morning, they would go to Kawowo. Even TV started referring to us. Newsrooms meet every morning. They would meet and discuss over our stories. Newsrooms in newspaper companies and TV stations. So we set the trend.
Yeah, what set you apart so that you become a reference point for guys who are giving sports updates in the morning or newsrooms trying to make sure, why does Kawowo have this story and we don't?
There was overwhelming passion. Every time I would go home, I would never, in fact, sleep, because I wanted at least 4 stories to go up. We wanted something new. We wanted new developments. If a team won 2-0, we wanted to see how to show how they won. Because newspapers had no space for lineups, we could include lineups, we could include substitutes. TV shows have small limited time to discuss issues. We could include everything, how the matches went. Of course, that is how people picked interest in that, and it was the truth, naturally, but nothing from the truth. So other people were putting up a cup of lies. So when you say the match ended 2-0 and someone reports 2-1, that is a fabrication, it's a lie. So we publish the truth every time and every now and then. That is how we built credibility over the years.
Right, Ismail, very...
Isabirye.
Similar names.
Isabirye. They sort of, it's like we're around a fireplace and we're trying to, take in a lot of information
from the oracle.
From the oracle of David Isabirye. But David, of course, being very versatile over the years at the beginning, but then, of course, as the team grew, then there were different guys who joined. Ernest with the rugby, I came with the cricket.
I could be one of the very youngest.
Sport, yeah.
Because I found, Mr. Franklin, my editor, has been here. I found
young or newest. Yeah, would have been
could be one of the newest on the team.
Makes sense.
Exactly. David, we greatly appreciate you, and I'm sure all our viewers as well appreciate you very much for the work you do. Keep going, and I hope that those 6 figures grow into 7. And 8 as Kawowo Sports continues to grow. But it's time for us to start off. As usual, we'll start with the guest. And David here to break down for us the life of Bakar Lawal at Vipers Football Club. Might have ended in a sad way. But for a man who comes from the peninsula, as we call it, like he likes to call it, the peninsula town of Uganda.
Lakeside Peninsula.
The Lakeside Peninsula.
Picturesque.
David Isabirye, please just help all our viewers to try and appreciate the talent of Bakar Lawal.
Of course, to start with my homestead in Entebbe, it's where I actually grew up from all through my years of life. I only left for 3 years to Makerere, but every weekend I would still go back to Entebbe. So I've lived to love Entebbe so much. When the news of Bakar broke, I was on my way to town. I saw the first this time the advent of WhatsApp. When I was starting Kawowo, there was no WhatsApp. the advent of WhatsApp, in every group you would check Lawal has died, but of course the earlier information came in with an accident. But when the scrutiny came up, of course the body had a few scratches and you could put it away. The police said they are through their cameras, there's no element of an accident on Entebbe Road. So the accident thing was crossed. A few hours later, Vipers posted on their official Twitter handle. They confirmed that indeed Lawal is dead, but they'll be confirming the next coming time when the truth comes, the cause of death. Luckily, police, by the close of the day, police posted and it showed clues. Maybe he jumped to his way to death or he was pushed. But at least the accident thing was rubbished off. Lawal as a player joined Vipers in 2012. In that very year, 2012-2013, he managed to score a few goals. And luckily, no, 2022, sorry. And luckily, he was part of that team that won the domestic double. In Uganda, they say he's a Salon. A league and the Uganda Cup. He was, a few days ago, I interacted with the Vipers, one of the Vipers assistant coaches, Fred Muhumuza. He told me he had never met a disciplined player as Lawal. He had never met a disciplined player as Lawal. But because maybe he was aging, the police say he was 39, but FIFA records has 29. You know how it comes. How footballers doctor age. Possibly he might have he might have doctored his age, because even when his brother was sending in condolences, he talked about their 9 brothers. The mother is 90 years. The father died when he was 21 years. So that means 21 years ago plus 20, that means he's 41. 41, even the police records are dismissed. Yeah. But on the light side of it, Lawal will be missed forever, because all the Vipers players confess he had a very big influence in the dressing room.
And you can see that
and
the
that
Vipers
is
guys,
why he was honored. His shirt 8. When he had just come in, he was putting on shirt 11. But in the latter season, he put on shirt 8. And it was a very good gesture to see the Vipers players honor him, and the fans as well as the club director, who offered a plane from Lagos to Sokoto, because Lagos to Sokoto is like Kampala to Arua, over 900 kilometers. But I only wish the team which traveled to Sokoto the very best, because those guys are hostile. And losing a person in unclear circumstances, your life could be in danger as well.
There are Vipers officials that are traveling with
one person I know about is Kenneth Mwanga, one of the media personnel in charge of Vipers. That one I'm sure, because he traveled, because even yesterday he wasn't part of the team that worked yesterday at St. Mary's Stadium, Chitend, as they beat Mara City 1-0. The match wasn't very easy for Vipers in the post era of Lawal, because personally I could see there were different gestures of sorrowness.
There's emotion in the game.
Yes.
But anyway, Bakar Lawal, I think he scored the first Vipers ever first goal at
the CAF Champions League.
The CAF Champions League. That game was against Isabirye. At least Isabirye is here as a dictionary.
It was against El Merrick, a Sudanese club.
Yeah, that's one of the goals scored by.
And I think one of the reasons why that goal was scored against Arua Hill, that very one we are seeing, a quick wall pass. Honestly, you ask me a wall pass, I think you know it. A wall pass is like, typically it's like you play against the wall gets you the ball. It's between him and between Yunus. Yunus Setem was one of his best friends at Vipers. In fact, Yunus confessed that they have been playing together on the same mat. But the sheikhs who led the prayers, the dua prayers last Thursday, testified the dignity of Lawal. He offered some mics to be used in the mosque. He had also asked for the budget to facilitate the Holy Ramadan. So that shows his light side of as a person.
Very, very dedicated. Thank you very much, David Isabirye. They're very, I think, and it has been outpouring, especially from the football fraternity, the way they united together to come for his open dua at the St. Mary's Chitende Stadium.
Actually, all the Super League clubs, clubs below the Super Division, that is the big league, clubs in the regional league, former players of Vipers, referees, administrators, and of course FUFA, who paid 1 million in condolences. Also, people were saying 1 million is very, very little from the federation.
Depends.
But condolences are condolences.
Yes, exactly. I think the gesture is what should be appreciated. The amount, those are other things you can talk about.
And Dr. Mulindo, who offered to pay the remaining 6 months of his contract. In fact, he asked the family if he could pay via the whole sum, or he pays per month.
Wow.
Because Lawal's brother, Mansour Lawal, confessed Lawal was the hero, the breadwinner of the family. Because there are 9 boys, the mother is 90 years, the father died 21 years ago when Lawal was 20.
So yeah, I mean, it's a big loss to the family, and but a good gesture as well from the director of Vipers to make sure that the remainder of his contract is paid out to the family.
Yes.
And may his soul rest in eternal peace. He will forever be missed by the Venoms. Thank you very much, David. I'll move it along. Franklin, you're the editor of Kawowo Sports. Your quick starter before we get into the detail.
Week starter. Things happened over the weekend.
A lot of things, I know.
A lot of things happened over the weekend. But I think the big news around was the change of administration in Cricket Uganda, getting a new chairman and obviously General Secretary, Women Representative. The first change in 4 years. One of our own is part of the team. So
see how white his smile is. Honorable Wanangi.
Oh, it's white.
Honorable.
So we are in things, in the words of colleagues. We are in things. But outside of actually the cricket and all that, for me, what stood out for me over the past 7 days has been the Zone 5 Volleyball Championships that are happening at Rugogo. And what they have exposed is how far behind as a country we are in terms of quality of volleyball that we play. We are against our regional opponents. You're talking Rwanda, you're talking Kenya. What has happened over the past 5 days has showed that we have a lot of work to do as a country just to get close to Kenya or Rwanda.
Even the facilities, when you look at the facilities Rwanda uses in volleyball and Kenya, when Kenya hosted the Zone 5 some years ago, the facility at all the Kampala Sports Arena as well as Lugogo, they are far behind the facilities in Rwanda and Kenya.
No, obviously, all the Kampala Arena is a warehouse. Lugogo is as hot as hell right now. So, I mean,
that's why you are Franklin today morning.
Yes. It's why I've spent a big time of my weekend looking at how far back Nkumba is, and I mean in the women Nkumba and sports compared to APR and Kenya Pipeline, who they were competing against in the women semi-finals, and they were beaten in straight sets. And when I say beaten, I'm being economical with my words.
You're being nice with your words.
Actually, I'm being nice.
You're clobbered.
Yes.
I like David's description.
David is no holds barred.
Are they called adjectives in English, Mr. Editor? I don't know. The vivid, the colorful description of how things went.
Actually, those Rwanda and Kenya, they have been very good ambassadors in volleyball for the region.
Yeah.
Right from the scouting mentality, where they scout very tall players, as early as 12 years old. They scout a boy or a girl who can easily play volleyball, and with age, You can find someone who is very aggressive and someone who very offensive. And I think most of their coaches are exposed coaches who are got from Europe. And the motivation, an average volleyball player in Uganda earns as much as a footballer here. In Rwanda, rather. Yeah. Earns as much as a football player here. But here, when you look at the payments of volleyball players, it's virtually peanuts. They're only paid allowances or something.
I think is Uganda
I think they're so driven by passion.
Yeah. I think in school the most popular competitions outside football and athletics, you'd find netball, girls netball, women's netball, and volleyball. Those are like when you go for USSA games, you go for FIASA games, volleyball and netball are highly competitive across the board for most schools. But Uganda doesn't. When you get outside school, we don't feel like we have a volleyball culture.
Maybe like
we are not
Franklin
playing enough volleyball.
Maybe like Franklin has mentioned, I think it's been an eye opener for Uganda Volleyball Federation and all the clubs as well. That when you compete outside your borders, you start to know that at home I am the best. But when you get out of home, you know that maybe my mom is not the best cook. So
and the other thing I would love to ask is, we say this across the board for like most sports, is that like in rugby we say Ugandans are naturally small and short. In let's say basketball we are not tall and big, you know. And I'm thinking the same can be said of volleyball. But there are also lessons that we can learn from, let's say, athletics. The athletics camp is not here in Kampala, where people eat matoki. It is a lakeside, there's a breeze, life is good here. They are not in Angole, where we also eat matoki and drink milk.
It's in the hills of
athletes are in Kapchora in Teriet, you know. There's the marathon, one of the biggest marathons here in Uganda. Is in Kasese. You can see the sort of places. And when you look at, like, let's say like the rugby team, most of the guys who have been really talented in Uganda, they've not come from around here. There's only a few outliers, but most of the guys have come from regions which are best suited for the sport. I wonder, are we doing the same in volleyball? Because if you go to northern Uganda, there are enough tall people and strong people to play the sport.
Maybe that's why volleyball has had sort of a pit stop in Kumi, a region that has, boys who have some good height. Because volleyball is really a very famous sport in Kumi. I don't know if they are intentional. The other thing would be being intentional about where you want to find your talent. I don't know if the Uganda Volleyball Federation is doing that, but I know Franklin will give us more of that juice later on. I watched a bit of the quarterfinal between Reg of Rwanda and some team is called Rutonzi from Burundi. They didn't have very tall players, but they had average height. Someone who was your height, I think. The boy from Burundi, but he had a spring on him. He would spike that ball and he got the crowd really very, very excited. So maybe sometimes you use what you have to your advantage. But Ernest, moving to you, what has stood out for you last week?
It has started raining at the biggest rugby club in Uganda. It started raining a bit and now it's pouring. I never thought a day would come when I see Heathens lose 3 games in a row. But it has happened. In fact, remember when we were here in, I think, episode 2, said Pirates had beaten Heathens, and now they are going to play Hippos who have not lost at home in 100. Last time, they must lose 2 games for the first time in a very long time. And when I went to check, I found that the last time that had happened was in 2017-18 when Pirates had won the league. And one of the teams that had beaten Heathens was Buffaloes, who they were going to play next. So they played against Buffaloes on Saturday in the Chadondo derby, very, very fierce derby. And unfortunately, they lost again by just 1 point, 20 points to 21. And there were very many opportunities for Heathens to win the game, but as you know, Bovera Kaserengeto.
When he trains, sometimes it powers.
And you can see the some of the scenes from that game. Heathens are a shadow of their former selves, and one wonders when someone will pull the handbrake so that they can stop sliding backwards. Very easy penalty try that was awarded from a scrum. You read it against Heathens. No offense to the Buffaloes, but when you see such scenes happening, Heathens have not done enough to be champions, to win that game. And then they get an opportunity in the last play to win it by the kick and it goes wide. these are absolute sins. You would say that's how
honestly,
absolute sins at Chadondo.
There's a moment in sport when a team is on the back track, when a great patch comes up, you can even lose as many as 4 games.
That's the gentleman. I think the football guys will know him.
Oh, he's called Abdallah Biaruhanga. Kawowo has a feature about him.
Wow.
I wrote about him. He's a very passionate fan.
Yeah.
He covers football. Now he was recruited by Buffaloes.
Maybe I'll start with Ernest from there, just to stay with the rugby. Are there any heads on the chopping block for now, or all the losses don't call for any alarm? They haven't been. There have been close losses. The Pirates one on the road to Ginger.
Hippos was bad, but Pirates and Buffaloes were not so bad. And but then Heathens had the lead at halftime, so you tend to think that they've let the foot off the gas. But the head coach or the coaching setup won all the trophies that were available for them last year. So they've not forgotten how to coach. Mohamed Ethio and his technical bench of, I think one of his they have not forgotten. In a week, they had won 5 games. They were unbeaten in 5, in 4. Then they lost the 5th, and they lost the 6th and the 7th, and the 8th. They lost the 6th, 7th. They lost 5th, 6th, 7th. So they've not forgotten how to coach, and neither have the players forgotten how to play.
I think players have
and
forgotten
I thought when they have, I thought when they have
some players, but they have forgotten.
I thought when they have the 7s guys full time for their 15s, run, they would be a much better team.
Yes and no, because Heathens, even last season, they didn't have their 7s players, but they still won. Without them. So I think it's more of let me call it a chemistry problem. Let me call it maybe an attitude problem, because the team, they look like they're lacking leadership, and they were doing well with Michael Crutch in there at number 8. But now when he got injured against the Pirates, things have gone from bad to worse, in his absence. And you get the feeling that they will need a figure to step up, and they are not short of leaders.
Okay, as we finish the rugby, Ernest, does this run have their chances of finishing among the top 4? I mean, getting into the playoffs?
Of course not.
Not yet. The alarm bells, first hold on to them a bit.
Okay, they're holding on to those alarm bells. But for now, we have a chant from the Buffalo team. Our producer is going to bring it up.
Let's go for this.
Loudest fans. Loudest fans.
One, two, three,
Stuff there from the Buffaloes.
The funny bit is that Heathens are the Buffaloes are the landlords at Shadow.
Thrown a party.
They are the landlords. Buffaloes are the landlords. So they collected their rent on day 1 of March.
That's a good one from Buffaloes. I hope that Heathens can.
I think we are at a point where I don't know how best to describe it, but when let me call it the dictator, when the oppressor has started being oppressed.
I think everyone is always for the underdog.
Yeah, everyone is okay with things going wrong. Because we feel a certain way when Elgon Wolves is losing games. We are feeling a certain way when maybe Eagles, things have not gone well for Eagles on the pitch, But Heathens dropped points and
everybody is happy.
Everyone is happy. They don't mind.
Why
but
they hate?
There's still that feeling that, because I was in Entebbe for Mongas versus Cobbs, and when the information, of course, when you're at work, you keep checking what are the results here, and the results kept coming in, and we got to hear that Walukuba is squeezing Rhinos in Walukuba at the Abel Dera Memorial. Pirates had put 70 past Warriors. And the kickoff at Entebbe had delayed because an Avengers player needed to be evacuated for an injury. So kickoff at Entebbe had delayed. It was maybe around 20 minutes past 4 p.m. when the game kicked off. So all the other games were ahead and we kept getting the scores coming in. But when news came in that Buffaloes had beaten Heathens, at first it was cheers of, hey, this is very good news. Then after people started worrying, because if Heathens is number 5, they've not gone below number 5. Rhinos is ahead, but the one below, Victoria Sharks, has not caught up to catch them. Maybe if they lose again, maybe then they can drop to 6th. But if you're 1, 2, 3, you don't want Heathens to drop further, because that means you face them in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, true.
And so at this point, there's no, people cannot see Heathens losing more games. It's because they
need
like
to stop somewhere.
they are thinking they cannot keep losing all their games.
Yeah.
If we meet them in the same final,
So you don't want to meet them
in the
quarterfinals, because they are
Yes.
they're a different beast.
They'll be a
in the
wounded,
playoffs.
a wounded animal.
Yeah.
And I saw the Kawowo admin on social media. The caption was, "Scenes when the result scenes at Legends."
At Legends, when Barrett was playing Warriors.
Yes, when the results from Chadi came in, and there were all photos of photos taken by Don Mugabe, who was part of the team.
You could say the same thing about Entebbe. When the players got to know that Heathens had lost, players from both teams, because Cobbs is looking at competing with Heathens for maybe a 2nd place or a 3rd place. Yeah. So if they lose another game, that works in their favor. But Mongas are playing Heathens next week. So they need Heathens to come when they are still on the back foot.
Thank you very much, Ernest, for that rugby update. And for all those details, please visit Kawowo Sports for a lot more of that from Ernest Akwarebirunji, all the weekend results and the breakdown of what happened, and the table standings as well, where is Heathens going on the table so far. Mine will be very, very quick. You guys have already mentioned it. Of course, the chain of God at Uganda Cricket, surviving the election wasn't an easy one. Wasn't an easy one. And of course, they promised us drinks. So, but just to let you know, I'm still the host of this show, even if I'm honorable now. Someone may be eyeing the job, but the job is not taken. I'm still going to be here for as long as possible. Yep. But we'll quickly go to the only thing, by the way, just to mention before we move on quickly to David, someone mentioning one of the journalists, I think not the ones who really cover cricket. She just casually mentioned the comment. She was like, "Hey, cricketing abalonda bato."
In fact, she was spot on, because just look at the CEOs for many sports federations and associations. At FUFA, Edgar Watson is coming to 50, I think. Volleyball, the CEO is aged. Handball, I think you can even forget the first statement he said. Handball.
How is he actually?
Isaac Lutwama is still a very young man.
But I think that is the trend. The trend is
sport is for young people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm grateful that the fraternity has seen fit that the young generation can be able to lead. Jackson Kovuma elected as chairman to take over from Michael Nwagaba. Michael, his term ended. He was done with his term. And Lelia Namaganda Ondeko, someone I actually coached, is now the women's representative.
Not young. They have not chosen a young secretary.
Lelia Namaganda Ondeko elected as the ladies representative on the board for the next 2 years. So a lot of work to do for us, but hopefully that we can do a good job, so that those that come after us, we don't want to make it, you don't want the comparison to be, you guys, you're not different, but hopefully that we can be able to take the game forward. But now we'll start with David as we get into the detail. David, it has been a penning conversation to have one of you guys, especially who write football, on Kawowo Sports. I think I'll ask one question, and I'm sure Ernest and Franklin have their own. Let's start with Vipers. Look like they're going to run away with it. Maybe NEC seems to be the pretender to the crown, but Vipers in scintillating form as they top the Uganda Premier League table. And then, of course, everyone thought KCCA would run them close, but KCCA has slid down the table. They are in as far as, I think, 6th. They're closer to Mbarara City. I don't know.
Bara is way down.
Chichie Chidi Rugogo. I think that is where we should start from.
Actually, start with KCCA. It is one club where my father, James Chiranda, was the secretary, like you. So on match days, he would dress us in all yellow, including the shoes and underpants.
I used to be a fan of KCCA because by the look of things, you were introduced to the club.
But fun enough, I've never felt KCC.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but
It's a question we like to ask the other people. What's your favorite local football team?
fun enough, KCC wasn't part of my blood. Instead,
It just forced it on you.
I sympathized with Express. Back in the days, one evening I went to watch a match against Orlando Pirates when Mark Fish was still playing in Orlando Pirates.
Yeah.
And Gavin Lane scored a late header. That is how I started to love Express. Just from going to watch their match
We now have two
as
Express guys.
a ball boy. No,
So,
Two Express guys and two
The man is
KCCA
still
guys.
talking.
I lost the favor of Express.
To which team?
I'm now a neutral guy, but I love those local teams from Entebbe.
Masavu,
Of late, Gaddafi Masavu, I think, is extinct. It's now Entebbe FC, and there's a team called Garuga Stars in the 4th division.
I liked the word that you chose to describe your relationship with Express.
Yes,
You
yes.
sympathize. You
I
sympathize with
sympathize
them.
back in the days. But KCCA this season, I think, KCCA this season, I think there are 12 matches to go. They are way behind the leading pack, Vipers and NEC, unless the pre-NEC loses weekend out, weekend in, which is virtually impossible. The latest draw with Maroons yesterday at the Luzira Arena spells doom, I think, for Abdallah Mubiru and his backroom staff, Kefat Sara and the like, because many KCC fans are not very happy with the performance. In fact, when I watched KCCA play NEC, they were calling for Abdallah's blood by half-time. Yeah, a section of fans were chanting his name, get sacked, get sacked. And it's not very good news, especially when you are vying for the league and the Uganda Cup. Uganda Cup, there is still hope because they are one of the 16 teams in the round of 16. But I think league, it's way past them now because Vipers, as you see, Vipers, it's a team on mission. Much as they have got that setback of the loss of the player, but Vipers, the way it is, the motivation from the director himself, Dr. Lawrence Mulindwa. I think the main opponent now is NEC because Vipers leads by 3 points. And the third place team, Chitara, is also playing catch up. I don't think Vipers will lose weekend out for Chitara to play catch up. So it is a two-man race at the moment.
For KCCA, what do you think could have been the problem? They started so well in the season, but then later on, it's just been it's either a draw or a loss.
Sporting results, like Ernest was testifying to Heathens, at times you may pass through a bad patch, a spell of bad results. KCC underwent through one of those periods. Then I think the dressing room, Abdallah lost control of the dressing room. One time he was replacing a player at half-time. No, in fact, before half-time, 30th minute. Some of the players, ex-players in the stands, were talking about his loss of confidence in some of the senior players. And that distorts your confidence in the whole lot you are managing. So when you lose a dressing room for a technical team member, it spells doom for you as a compatriot, because football coaches are like pilots. Once you lose direction where you are focusing, it's well spelled on the wall. You will not manage the team.
David, in this league of ours, in the past, Derek Nsimambi was a top striker, Sadata Naku, a top striker, you're talking about Usama Rafat, a top striker. Why are goals? And the midfield of Mayanja,
Seven Georgie,
Joel,
Ashraf Mugume.
These are creative boys. And the strikers that they have at KCCA are, by our standards, by Ugandan standards, okay strikers. Why have the goals not come at Rugogo?
At one moment, Coach Abdallah Mubiru was testifying the players are playing for self-enjoyment. they are playing to glorify themselves so that they are summoned to the national team, which personally, to a more extent, to me, it is not right at all. Because when you look at the combination of players they have, fine, Abdallah Sadat Anaku is a returning party, and he was sidelined for a very long time with an injury, very bad injury. When Derek Nsabambi was summoned back to the KCC team, he also suffered a setback of injuries. So it has been a combination of very many factors at KCCA foiling their bad run at the moment.
I think we can say if your team wears yellow at the moment.
Now the cricket cranes are winning.
But there's hope. There's hope. KCC.
How do they get?
Their next match?
I think that will be the next question. How do they get out of this bad run?
There's hope. Their next match is against Isabirye Heroes on the 6th.
The Surgeons.
Against Isabirye Heroes, one side, which is coached by a former KCC player, a legend, Bakar. And I believe when they come to Lugogo, because they're coming to Lugogo, much as they have been having a very bad run themselves, it will be very good news for KCC to at least make a comeback. Yeah, if they fail against Isabirye Heroes, then it will be very bad news for
them. You see, there's games where you're thinking.
No, you look at the fixture and then you see the next games probably could give you, it can put you on a run that could eventually turn your season.
Yeah. Do you think Umaru Taro can bring such a big difference in the search?
Apparently, Umaru Taro hasn't been used of late so oftenly when he made that mid-season transfer from Chitara. But there are other players of substance as well. That is if Sadata Anaku and Derek Nsibam pick their A game. Arafat Usama will be playing a childhood club, Isabirye Heroes.
Nana Kwekis has not brought the scoring boots as well.
Yeah, he sparked in a couple of games, but it wasn't consistent enough to help the team.
We might not be scoring, but are we stopping people from scoring?
That was also going to be my question.
Defense, vis-a-vis attack, there are two departments which need to work in equal measure. Now, if you don't score, at least defend, and the match ends 0-0.
Let's draw 0-0 and
draw as many as possible.
We take the 1 point, but we are losing.
Yeah, we are. KCCA is leaking goals, so it's a lot of work to do. I don't know if it will be right. It will be right for KCCA to let Abdallah go. This is his first full season. He came in last season at halfway stage. This has been his first proper full season. In my opinion, I thought, first of all, the football looks good on the eye. It's just the end product that is sort of missing. And a little more time probably could allow him to...
Abdallah branded himself as a coach.
Stamp himself on the team.
As a coach of Kawowo, very good football, attractive football. He coached me when I was in Mawogola. That team that had Alex Kakuba, Odonka Robert in goal, Maluda Matovu now at Villa. It was a very good team. That's how I came closer to him. He's a coach who believes pass the ball, it will reach our destination. But in this league where every pass counts, you need to score the goals and as well defend solidly.
But I think even him at the back of the mind, he knows this job is only about results. It's not about how many completed passes. Franklin, you're saying something.
Talking about the big boys who are struggling, Imole is not doing me any better at Vida. And losing to UPDF in the most recent game. 8 Sevilla fans wanted his neck. But again, the big boys are struggling. What is not right at Vida?
Since the start of the year, there could be a series of mixed results, and Villa is trying to defend the title they won last season. Molebie Kwaso is facing intense pressure, especially from those Villa fans, who are so much passionate, I believe, than any of the 3 other clubs. You are AKCC or even Vipers. Molebie Kwaso, like Abdallah Mubilu, also is facing stability in the dressing room. And once a football team has such issues, you can never think of any positive result.
I would like to ask David, is this because I'm seeing the common fixture here is from someone who does not know a lot of football. When you start coaching the national team, you start suffering at club level. Could there be? I'm not trying to. I'm trying to see if there's maybe an intersection somewhere there. But is there any relationship, or because you can be a good national team coach? Molebie Kwaso is a good national team coach with the under 20 boys. Dara Mubiro was once the head coach of the Uganda Cranes, and then I think he's
short stint with the cricket Cranes. I mean, with the Uganda Cranes.
But at the club, things are not going well.
Of late, FUFA tried to minimize that divided loyalty, whereby they design contracts. Once you're a national team coach, especially for the senior team, Uganda Cranes, you put away these other responsibilities so that you concentrate on the national team. It so happens Molebie Kwaso is relieved of the under 20 role, which was given to Brand Senyondo. Now Molebie Kwaso has all the time to plan and assemble a very good team at SC Vida because he's not disturbed by the national team responsibilities. It could be a blessing in disguise that some of those senior coaches are struggling at the moment. But in a team of 16, in a league of 16 teams, 16 clubs, there could be a moment you could expect some teams to struggle, some teams to be up there.
Yeah. And so when that question comes from a coach, and we are talking dressing room management.
Yeah.
You should be giving us more answers than questions.
The dressing room is very hard to manage you people.
Yeah, so that is, I mean, player management is sometimes very hard. It is actually very hard because if you have a squad of 30 players, let's say 30 plus players for a football team, and in our league, every player believes they are almost at the same level. If one doesn't get time to play, that is already going to cause a problem.
Yeah.
If he misses to play 2 matches and is on the bench, that's a problem. Why is the coach not playing me and all that?
Yeah, and I think for the coaches, it's really a very
man management is very
management.
I think it happened last season at Chitara, where in fact this very season, where Brand Senyondo was the head coach, and he had a lot of very many good players. So fielding one and leaving the other would leave questions.
Maybe that could lead to the question I would ask you that since Mr. the Mulongo took over, Waswabosa, Chitara has sort of turned around their season, and they are already into the top half of the table. Yes. What could be the difference? Because he didn't come in there and said, I don't want a squad of 30, I want a squad of only 16. He's still looking after the same squad that was left behind by Brand Senyondo.
The magic was he sat down those exact players. He told them the mission at hand. Of course, it wasn't an easy start for him as well. He lost, I think, to URA. The first game he was in charge. After that game, they held, I think, a 3-day indoor meeting to iron out problems.
3 days.
3-day indoor meeting.
The Berlin conference.
I'm telling you, 3 days.
Players would easily express their hearts. Yeah. And that way, when you open up, you can find some of the problems to the that could be causing division, could be causing underperformance. And of course, the club chairman, Deo Kasozi, has been fueling the club, although he said next season is not returning. Because that club, unlike other clubs, it is ruled by a chairperson who has a term of office.
All right. Okay. Interesting. So for Vipers, is it champagne on ice, or can Nick, try and throw a spanner
I can
in
say
the works?
It is still a two-man race between Nick and Vipers, and Vipers has their immediate game. Next game is against Police, away in Kavumba. How Simon Peter Mogera, the head coach at Police, assembles his team. Remember, in the mid-season, the Police lead forward, Francis Ogwang, left Police to Vipers. But he has since played one game, only 45 minutes, and he got injured. So how Vipers overcome that match? And the crucial match would be NEC visiting Chitende. It would be very decisive of the title.
NEC have not been very good on the road, have they?
No.
They haven't been good travelers. So could be interesting what happens. If you feel that if Chitende are able to take care of business take care of the business of NEC at the St. Mary's Stadium, it could be game set and championship for them, right?
just in case all the factors remain neutral, NEC wins, Vipers wins, NEC wins, Vipers wins, the decisive match will be Vipers versus NEC at St. Mary's Chitenge.
That's round what?
Second round of the league.
Second round.
I mean, how many games left to win the season?
Match day number what, I think.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
I think NEC will be played in April. Then the Vipers NEC game should be in
It will be after. It will be after Easter. It will be after Easter period.
Should be in April.
That's close
Yeah.
enough to the end of the season.
Yes, because the season climaxes in May, and before we head into the CHAN preparations.
Could be interesting. Vipers NEC on 43 points and Vipers on 44, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Vipers on 43.
43 and NEC on
40.
NEC on 40. 3 points ahead of NEC, Vipers Football Club. Should be interesting. That race to the title, of course, Aston Villa, the defending champions.
The Uganda Cup in
the Uganda Cup as well. But the focus has been on the Uganda Premier League, and NEC leading that table by 43 points. Vipers leading by 43 points, and NEC in second position on 40. Like David has mentioned, that decisive game coming up after the Easter weekend when NEC visits the St. Mary's Stadium in Chitende. That could be the league, the title decider for who goes away. Because I think for now we would say the defending champions, Aston Villa, are still way behind in trying to defend that title. But please make sure you continue reading Kawowo Sports for that. The race to the title from David Isabirye, Ismail Kionga, and Joel Moita. They'll be giving you all the updates on on all your favorite teams and who will be winning the title for this season. That guarantees when you win the league, you qualify for the Champions League. If you win the Uganda Cup, you qualify for the Confederations Cup.
Yes, and of course, some small fee. I think 68 million.
Small fee. The man who earns in six figures sees it's a small fee.
No, when you compare the league winner in Tanzania, when you compare the league winner in Kenya, the league winner in Rwanda, our prize money remains the bottom placed.
Yeah. Okay.
Where
We'll get. I hope we get somewhere. And quickly, let me start with Ernest with an update on the rugby. Ernest, first you tell us about the men's team, then the women's team, before we bring in Franklin with an update on the Zone 5 volleyball championship that's rolling. That will be concluding today in Logogo, actually.
Oh, it's today?
Yeah, it concludes today.
So this weekend we had the first round of the World Rugby Sevens Challenger Series. So in rugby...
First, explain to us the Challenger Series. How does it work and where does it take us?
Yeah, so in rugby, there's the 15th game, which is called Test Rugby, the international games, where we had the World Cup in 2023. And then there's the sevens, the one which is played at the Olympics, because there's rugby at the Olympics. Now that game of sevens is played in a series all year round, but not every country will play the whole year round. So they have two tiers. The top tier is called the HSBC Sevens Series, and then the second tier is the Sevens Challenger Series. Uganda is not in the top tier. Uganda is in the second tier. How you qualify? The qualification is every year. You win your regional competition. So in Africa, we play the Africa Sevens, and this applies to both men and women. You win the Africa Sevens, you qualify for Sevens Challenger. Usually they take 2, sometimes they take 3 African teams. This year, for the men, they've taken 2, that is Uganda and Madagascar. And then for the women, it is Uganda, then Kenya and South Africa. So the Sevens series is already ongoing, but the Challenger plays fewer rounds, and then when you finish with the Challenger, you qualify for the series. The Sevens Challenger started...
How many teams coming out of the Challenger to go into the Sevens series?
I'm coming. Okay. The Sevens Challenger started this weekend in Cape Town, South Africa. And even the next round, which is next weekend, is also going to be in Cape Town, South Africa. Now, the top 8, when they finish these 2 rounds, the top 8 from round 1 and round 2 in Cape Town will qualify to play in Poland in April. So when they go to Poland, when the top 8 go to Poland in April, they will take the top 4 from the Sevens Challenger, and then the bottom 4 from the Sevens series to play for promotion/relegation in Los Angeles in May. That's how the setup is. It's a bit of there's a bit of permutations, but you can follow. And so this weekend, the Sevens Challenger for this weekend was at the Athlone Stadium in Cape Town, a bit away from the coast, but still in a beautiful place. And Uganda
I like
was
the uniform. We have some white this time. It has always been black.
The feedback from the rugby fraternity has not been very welcoming, and I personally as well. I'm not. I like the white, but my issues are with the black. I'm not sure whether the black is black or brown. Initially, we thought maybe it's the sun, maybe it's the photos, but still the jersey has not swept very many hearts. But the design is the design is a beautiful one. I in my view, I like the white.
Why did we used to have black and red? Not so.
Yes, Uganda's colors are black, yellow, and red. And for football, depending on who sponsors the national team, you either put on red or yellow at home, and then white maybe when you're away. In Uganda, usually we stick to the safe side, which is black. Yeah, we stick to the safe side, which is black. There's been a red kit as well. We've had a yellow in there also. And I think this is the first time I'm seeing a white for Uganda. And the white, I love the white.
Looks cool.
So the manufacturer is a different one. Initially, we've been having Samurai and Tessen, but now we have Mafro. Mafro make the Heathens kit, and I think they're also the same people who made the KCCA kit.
Yes. They work with KCCA.
So that's the organization that, the brand that has designed the new kit. But there's still questions on the quality that we are getting of that jersey. The material, rugby people, they are very particular. Those are football shorts. We are doing entondo. That's the best way I can put it.
So how did the ladies perform?
The ladies, so we were in Pool C. We won one game and lost one game on, can I check my notes?
Replicas available for the white, because I want to get that white.
I would love to get one as well, but I think as soon as the team maybe comes back and maybe the union announces, they will let us know when they will be available.
250 cars usually.
So the women played Colombia and Belgium on Saturday. That was the first day. Yeah. We lost to Colombia, but then we beat Belgium, so we finished second in the pool. Then for day 2, we were now, so when you top your pool, you go to the semi-finals. When you finish number 2, you go to the 8th place playoff. Then when you finish number 3, you go for 9th to 12th place playoff. So we finished number 2, so we played in the 5th place playoff against Thailand. Thailand beat us, and then we went on to play in the 7th place playoff, and we lost again to Czechia, the team which used to be Czech Republic. They've changed their name to Czechia. We also lost. So we finished number 8 out of 12 for the women, which is, I should say, for the women, given the investment that they've put in them. They have a new national team consultant who, from the way the operations are being done at the national team, is the national team head coach, Mr. Bronson Wire. The investment that they've been put in, they've not played club rugby in a very long time. They've been training since November last year to finish number 8, when last year they were rubbing shoulders with the top 4 and ended up finishing number 6. Is a very disappointing result in our first round for the women.
Yeah, okay. Honest. What changed for that women's side, especially after the game, the rugby that they played against Belgium, a top rugby side?
I think first I would like to say our conditioning, because we are strong and we play a very physical game, but we don't seem to last long in that game. Because when you watch the first, when like for day 2, for example, on the second day, we led against Thailand by 14 points to nil. Yeah, and then they came from behind and they beat us by 12 points to nil, and they came from behind and they beat us in the second half. Against Czechia, they were up by 14 points to nil at halftime, and we labored, and we ended up losing by 19 points to 21. So you could say maybe day 1, day 2, because day 1 the scores are a bit low, but day 2 the scores go up high. But the challenge is not in our conditioning. I think the team is conditioned well. The challenge is in our skills. Uganda can't seem to string 2-3 passes together. Yeah. Every time we're going for contact, our big players want to carry, but everyone at that level is big and strong. Yeah. So if, for example, Peace Lekuru lives here, Uganda, as a big player, as a very strong player, very hard to put down. But the other side, it's going to be one player bringing her down. And our inability to string 1-2-3 passes through our playmakers to the speedsters on the outside or to the power carriers keeps us working hard. And
not smart.
Yeah, not smart. And that's what is always costing us.
That drains the whole team. Yeah. I was happy to see Samia back in the team. I'm a big fan of hers. Yeah, and hopefully she can do the magic as always. So finishing 8th, that they need to match that result this weekend.
They need to match the result or better, because there's someone who was in the 9 to 12 who can
go ahead of you
into the top, and then we drop.
Okay, the lady rugby cranes. Samia comes from the Peninsula town
she
as
lives
well.
in-
Yes,
she lives in Entebbe.
And
She's a role model, by the way, and a big inspiration to very many young girls in the area.
and we are
well as
celebrating
other area-
in the
other
month of March is
places.
the month for women.
Yeah.
So a big shout out to her coming back after maternity leave to see her playing again for
Yeah,
the team.
for sure.
Big story. She's a serious powerhouse. She's a small girl, but she packs a punch, I tell you. And then
Now
our
for the men,
for the rugby
the
boys.
rugby boys, the
Yeah.
sevens, and I remember, I think should be like in January, I wrote a story that had me receiving phone calls.
I was
from
in
our
office. I will tell you just
sports
before you continue. I was in office on the way the rugby has grown on the team. I was in office on Saturday very early in the morning just to do some work. Our producer Fred was in office fidgeting. Password here in Tekola. I wanted to get into rugby pass to watch the game. So for a guy who I'm sure by the time Fred joined Kawowo didn't even know so much about rugby, but he was there stressing me. I couldn't help him because he weren't around, but he kept saying password here in Tekola and I want to watch the game. Okay, let me use my PC. But eventually I think he got to watch the game anyway. But please continue.
the team, I think as a whole, we love watching Uganda as a whole. So you'll find us watching the
Whatever the
Silverbacks.
sport.
You'll find us watching the athletes when they are running. Today we had guys watching volleyball, football, golf,
Cricket, whatever.
cricket, everything. And this weekend was for rugby. Unfortunately, but I think here at office we had been forewarned and forearmed
Yeah.
to lower our expectations of the national team.
Actually, readers of Kawowo must have.
Yeah, readers of Kawowo are not surprised with how our team performed this weekend because the team started training late. If you train for 1 month to compete in the Sevens Challenge or in the World Series, it's never going to be anywhere near enough for us to compete favorably. The other thing is that we've sent away our most experienced players and gone with a new team. So we had 6 players.
Took a gamble.
We had 6 players making their debut at their Sevens Challenger debut in Cape Town on the weekend. And on day 1 on Saturday, we won 1 game, lost 1 game. So the same performance like for the women. This time they beat. Information is not on the head. They beat Brazil in the first game. Good start for them. And then they lost to Samoa, who usually gives us a hard time in sevens. In the last game, so that relegated them to number 3. Finishing number 3 in the pool means that you're going to play for 5 from 5 to 8, and that's where we faced Portugal. Portugal came from the World Series and dropped down to the Sevens Challenger, and I would love to use one of the words that David likes to use, then maybe make Gen Zify it a bit. They smoked us. Portugal smoked us by 47 points to 5. But we were able to recover in the very last game for the 7th place playoff, and we beat Japan. Japan have a competitive team, so beating them by 17 points to 7 to complete the weekend was a good result from the men. They finished number 7 out of 8. The difference is that it does not surprise many people who have been following Ugandan rugby that doesn't matter who plays for Uganda. We can't seem to get into the semi-finals of the Sevens Challenger, but we are not so bad that we are fighting for the double figures. So we finished number 7 out of 8. Next weekend, if we do the same, we shall, or better, we shall have booked our tickets to Poland.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
and Ernest, obviously, one of the stories that you wrote prior to that tournament was Toli telling his players to introduce themselves to the world. Of the group that was that is in Cape Town, who, in your opinion, introduced himself to the world?
I think, of course, you cannot go without speaking of the influence of Malcolm Okello and how he is such a good playmaker for the team. But for me, I think the number 1 player that I would love to talk about is Patrick Okello. Patrick Okello has been on the fringes of the Ugandan team.
Names and clubs, so that people
Patrick Okello of
feel
Heathens.
They are people.
Of Heathens. Malcolm Okello is also of Heathens. So Patrick Okello has been on the fringes of that team for a very long time. When they are going for the major tournaments, he is the non-traveling reserve. He is the guy who was dropped because you can't. So, but this time with the refresh of the squad, Coach Toli has refreshed the squad. Patrick Okello from last year with the Safari Sevens and now with the Sevens Challenger, he is part of the team, and boy oh boy, is such a hard worker. There's one of the tries whose highlights has been going around. You can see he wins the turnover, passes the ball, stays on his feet running support, and gets the ball back from his captain, Alex Aturinda. The rest you could speak of. You could speak of Alan Karuhanga. He's a back, but with his size, short but a bit strong, he can play amongst the forwards. Kamiza Jones in there as well. Got a taste of test rugby last year, and then this year he's trying out with the sevens. So you can you're slowly starting to see, like Coach Tolbert mentioned when the cameras had stopped rolling. These are some of the players who will be on Uganda's team for the next 10 years or so, because the past that we have seen, the Ian Munyanis, the Adrian Casitos, were introduced in the early 2010s, so maybe 2013, 2014. Then they won their first championship in 2016. This team have started now in 2024, 2025. Maybe if you're beginning to look forward, you're starting to see maybe 2030, 2031 is when these gentlemen these boys will have become men and they can start competing. The challenge with being a fan of Ugandan rugby is that we want to win every time.
Yeah.
And if
the old guy that gotten us used to winning.
Yeah. If we do not qualify for the series, there's going to be lots of questions. There's going to be people are beginning to ask, can we?
I think you need to manage that expectation, given
check the players.
I mean, if you have as many as 6 guys making their debut at such a big stage, you need to manage your expectation honestly.
Yeah, truth. But the difference is that we are milking a cow, we are not feeding. The players have not trained enough. There's the never-ending story about players' allowances have not been paid, their salaries have not come, they do not have contracts. Things like that. And the truth of the matter is, when you're training 2 hours a day or maximum of 3 hours in the morning, very early in the morning, so that guys can go to school, can go to work. For the women, it's literally the same thing always. When you're working with such hours, you cannot compete against a team which is giving 10 hours every day. It's
asking too much.
We're asking too much of them.
Okay. Any of the girls who stood out?
Grace Auma, as usual, of course. She is the Rolls Royce. They call her the Rolls Royce. I think that's the one. And then the usual players. Grace Auma, Pisleko hasn't had the best of days, but Lydia Namabiro performed, I could say, very well as well. But I think I would, and then you can add Grace Nabagara on that list as well. But I think for me, my player would be Mastula Nambozo. Mastula Nambozo played in the Africa Cup. She's from Mbale. She played in the Africa Cup in 2021 and then suddenly fizzled away from the national team. Then the Mbale girls and women came back in the league. They played last year. They're still playing this year. Mastula Nambozo has been one of their key players. She has gotten into the sevens fold, and I liked her boost in how we played against Belgium in yesterday's match, as a playmaker, keeping the ball moving, letting everyone work. I think she's one who will, if she continues with that attitude, she's one who will go very, very many tours around the world.
A good story from Mbale this week with the standout player for the Lady Cranes being from Mbale. Last weekend we were talking about other things about Mbale, but this week we pick a good story from Mbale. For more of those updates, both the men and the women are still in South Africa.
Yes, please.
They will be playing the second round this weekend. So for all those updates, please make sure you go to Kawowo Sports. Ernest will be breaking it down for you who will be playing in this round. And what does Uganda need to do, both the men and women, for them to progress to the next round in Poland? We'll now go to Franklin and giving us an update on that Zone 5 championship. Last week, Franklin and Kyle did a good job letting us know which Ugandan teams are in the competition. But as the curtain comes down on the tournament this weekend, how have the Ugandan teams fared? And what has been the overall, comment about the tournament, the organization, and have people come through at the MTN? I don't know if it's still called the MTN. At the Lugogo Indoor Arena.
Yeah. One, I think with Ugandan tournaments is that Ugandans, as one of the comedians,
I bought a ticket. Yes, I had to come with it for the show just to show Ernest that I didn't use my Kawowo ID.
The Kawowo ID doesn't work. If you're not Edwin and Franklin Kaweru,
I paid
maybe David Isabirye. Guys, please pay and watch support.
Actually, I got accreditation for that tournament.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens with Ugandan sport that each time there is an opponent of Ugandans gathering, they will show up. And I can tell you the attendance of the tournament has been good. I would say above average. You could see yesterday people I don't give women's games a lot of attention. But yesterday, for example, it was the two men's game that they played last, and people still stayed around until the last game. Actually, we left Goga at around midnight almost.
It was very brave from the federation body to the volleyball federation.
Yeah,
Usually it's the women first, then you have the men as sort of the main event.
On some days, to be honest, the women's games are more entertaining than men's, to be honest.
No,
On
but
some days. In some
volleyball?
sports. In some sports.
We're still talking volleyball, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, but this was, I think, intentional because the men's quarterfinals had to be played because their semifinals were to be played this morning, so they had to play fast.
Oh, okay.
The quarterfinals, or the men get done with it, go rest, and then be ready for the semifinals this morning. But how have Ugandan teams performed? Bad.
Sportes was in the semi-finals. Sportes ladies.
You're talking performance.
Okay. My apologies.
Yes. So Ugandan teams have performed really, really bad. Never mind having two teams in the semi-finals for the women, and three teams in the quarterfinals for the men, and one in the semi-finals. But in terms of quality of the game, the difference between Kenya, Rwanda teams and Ugandan teams is daylight, if I may put it that way. I'll start with the ladies. I think Sports tried to compete a little bit, or should I say better, against Kenya Pipeline. But Kenya Pipeline did not even need to engage an extra gear to win the game in straight sets. They just came just to toy around and get through the game and be ready for the finals. And it was even worse for Nkumba against APR.
Dagger through David Isabirye's heart.
Nkumba
alumni. Nkumba University alumni.
Nkumba were terrible in that game. Terrible in a manner that there was a moment when they could not receive a ball from the same server, and APR got about 7 points from one player serving. They couldn't break her serve, and it was very, 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 very embarrassing. And you look at Kotila Konya, and he wants to make changes to the team. He makes the changes, he brings in new players, same result. 7 straight points from the serve. And that just shows how bad.
Isn't this the receiving the serve? Isn't it the job of what are they called?
Libero?
The libero?
Libero or receiver. You see, volleyball, like any other sport, their intentions. A person serving can choose to serve to where he knows
which sport.
Customer for you.
And of course, it is about the team to cover up that gap in terms of how you're setting up to receive the ball and all that. But playing at a zonal level, it means you're the best. You're one of the best teams in the region. So that receiving the ball shouldn't be a problem at that level. Because if it was a high school tournament, you can understand. But when you're playing at a competition that is for top teams in the region, you shouldn't be struggling with some of the basics of the sport. And for me, that was the most disappointing thing about the two matches of the ladies in the semi-finals, APR and Kenya Pipeline. Like, of course,
class above. They are
above.
two semi-final opponents.
Yeah.
Meaning
Far
Kenya Pipeline and APR will be meeting in the final for the ladies.
Final, yes. This evening at 5 p.m. I think. Can pass by now. Good enough. I waited long enough, and the best game, in my opinion, happened this morning. The same final between Sports and Rwanda Police. It went, of course, all the way, the 5 sets. But how Sports was able to recover, obviously, Rwanda Police came as favorites in this game. But how Sports was able to recover and force a decisive set was a thing of beauty in terms of volleyball, and what they call, I think, being aggressive or being composed or maturity, stuff like that. I think they showed a lot of maturity in how they managed, especially the fourth set of that game. They trailed by by I think 4 points, and when you trail by 4 points against a top team, that is too much room you have to cover for you to get to a point where you need force another set. That is unfortunately, of course, they couldn't get the job done in the decisive set, and they completely switched off and they were washed out of the game.
The other semi-final for the men,
Yeah,
who was in the semi-final, Reg, probably with someone else.
Reg and Ep.4. I think it was being played as right now as we shooting.
As I came from, because I was at Logogo to attend our USPA, our workers union, our USPA monthly assembly, and you could hear the cheers in the. So
clearly there will be no Ugandan team in any of the finals.
Thank you for hosting. You've been good hosts.
The fans for sure are enjoying the semi-final.
Isabirye, a keen follower of volleyball as well.
One sure thing I know about a case study in KCCA Nkumba has been the transitional stuff. Ernest was talk about it in volleyball, in rugby. Yeah. Once you get away some crop of players and you bring in new ones, you are bound to face challenges of maintaining the cream of players who have been around for a long time, especially the standard set. The gelling, the tactics being delivered to the players, the competition level of competition itself, matching the demands of the game, especially when it comes to the speed and net defense in volleyball per se. So our teams were bound to get difficulties here and there.
Does the Nkumba volleyball team suffer the same problem of talking about it, especially for Makerere Impis? Because they are a university team, do they suffer the same problem of, once I'm done with my university course, then, that means you have to start all over again to find new players or do they have some players who are not university students?
Exactly. Once your 3 years are done, they are convinced to maybe to upgrade for another 2 years. Maybe you can serve another 2 years as you go for masters. Then after masters, most of the players have opted for work. Others have sought for greener pastures in established clubs as KCC, as Sportes, as KVC. And you leave the institutional side. Because by institutional side, even accommodation, you stay in the hostel or hall of residence. So virtually, most of those institutional teams lose their players, especially because they can't sustain them with their salary and basic pay. That's why they opt for clubs.
Dennis, I was talking to Tony Lakonyi, the coach of Nkumba, and the man couldn't find the right words to tell me. But what he said was some of the things that he saw from the girls is that there was a lot of fear and respect for the opponents, because when a team you're playing against was in the African Championship, naturally you're going to get some sort of
get overwhelmed
scare
by the
and they hear stories. Those players are paid $1,000 per month. Winning allowance is $200. So when they hear such stories, that is pay that would get them for the entire month. $200.
They just reminded me of a story of Dennis Okota at KCCA when Mamelodi Sundowns came.
It was called Jemba nickname.
came here to play them, and he was being asked by the captain then, Onyango's friend, how much money?
Sundowns,
how much money are you being paid to be hard on us like that?
What do you for you?
And the man inflated it and said, our allowance is $500.
I think for us, you'll hear when you're around the rugby players, you'll hear most stories about their experience. And now, like these young men who played their first tournament, when they come back, they'll have stories for their colleagues who they left behind. And one of the stories you'll hear is when you're competing against, let's say, a professional team or guys who are playing rugby professionally, you'll hear them saying that you're entering, let's say, a scrum or a line out, those places where the ball is not being played, but you're walking there. You hear him saying, you're playing in my child's school fees here, because this is a man with a family. For you, maybe your allowance is a few tens of dollars to be honest for playing. There's no winning bonus. You'll be lucky if you get a stipend to maybe do some shopping when you're on tour. Everything is taken care of. But because your accommodation, your transport, they are moving. If you want to move, there's a team bus for you to move. You'll go wherever you want to go. But when the person you're competing against is telling you that in my salary here,
you remind me of the story you shared with us sometime. I think the South African lady, when she's entering a scrum, in her mind she's thinking that whoever is on the other side is in between me and my livelihood and my other siblings, so I cannot collapse this scrum in any way.
Yes, that was one of the features that had been written about the South African prop. But it's the same thing David mentioned at the start of the show, that Bakar Lawal had eight brothers.
Nine brothers.
Nine brothers, and they are aging mother, and he was literally their breadwinner. So if they are going to set a corner kick, and you're trying to stop a Bakar Lawal, you're playing in his mother's life. So it's
life. It's a life and death situation.
Even the discipline, he was at the training ground 2 hours earlier than any of our Ugandan players. So that discipline,
that counts.
When you're playing for something, the cost becomes very high, and that's why maybe the guys who are serving against our Nkumba people, he knows that if this service that I'm sending to the Nkumba person,
and it is something they have done since they were 10 years old.
No, but as well, if you speaking of livelihood, if they do the math and they're like, if I'm on this trip, if we're successful on this trip, and there's a winning bonus of probably 5K each for each one of us. Man, that's life changing if I go back home. So I'm bringing this service with everything in it.
We'll tell the story when the time comes. When Zimbabwe won the Africa Cup here, each of them received $6,500 from the president of Zimbabwe for winning the Africa Cup here in Kampala. They are coming back. Imagine you won a tournament and they gave you a Kawundo.
This is a World Cup qualifier.
And they are coming back. And we are not talking about the Namibians and what. We are just talking about how much
we are picking our size.
And our players, they've only started training maybe last month in Feb. And they are still complaining about their contracts, their allowances, and you want to compete.
So you're already giving us heads up that when we go to Nambo, come
lower
for
your
vibes.
expectations.
Come for vibes. I know. Frankly,
but one positive probably that I hope our teams pick out of this tournament is that, you see, sometimes when you're beaten, I think one of the biggest reasons that you speak that something needs to change.
Yeah, that's what I said, that when you leave home and you travel elsewhere, then you get to know that, hey, okay, Ernest's no uncle's better than mine, so maybe you get humbled a little bit, and hopefully those are good lessons for Sport S, Nemo Stars, Nkumba as well, because if the championship comes around next year, you know what you need to work on for you to get better.
How far behind you and you need to get now yourself.
And of course, Uganda Volleyball Federation also has the biggest learning points, hosting such a big tournament, hosting guests from international countries, from other international guests. It is also another big milestone for the federation as well. Of course, we are going to learn a big thing or two, how to organize well such international championships. There has been a live stream.
There was a live
stream for all the matches, which is a must from the sister federation. That is CAB.
Okay, that's amazing stuff. And as well, the finals will be on this evening, both for the men and women. And of course, if you continue reading Kawowo Sports, you should be able to know who will be the champions from that Zone 5 volleyball championship. Maybe to wrap it up, from cricket, hosting a big event, international women's cricket is coming up next week. 3 teams will be visiting Uganda, Nepal, Namibia, and Hong Kong to play against our Victoria Pearls. It's been a while since they've been in action, but this is for them to host a tournament of this magnitude will be very, very good as they prepare for a big World Cup qualifier later in the year. It's very, very difficult to convince teams from those regions to come here, but I think Uganda has made a name of itself in the ladies' game for other teams to be interested in playing them. So it will be good for them we'll see how they play on. The tournament will be in Entebbe. David must be very happy at the
I
Entebbe
think
Cricket Oval.
Cricket fans should come and start watching
Yeah.
cricket over in Entebbe.
We
Yeah.
work from home.
Yeah, I know, from at the Entebbe Cricket Oval, and it should be a very, very testing series for them, of course, as well, because they have a sort of new technical team. Deus Mahomes are now promoted to head coach and being assisted by the former captain of the Cricket Cranes, Brian Masaba.
No way.
Yes way.
Yeah.
So should be a big test for them as well, because the Victoria Powers need a whitewash in this series for them to gain a certain number of points that are going to take them to a tournament they want to qualify for.
So it is a ranking tournament.
Yeah, it's a ranking tournament, and both Hong Kong and Nepal are ranked below us, so there are consequences if you
for
lose to
losing to
teams
them.
that are below you, and there are rewards for you if you beat the teams that are above you. So should be a big series, but I think they wanted to use the series to celebrate Women's Day. That's why it's been named the Women's Day Cup, and I think there's no better way to celebrate women this month than having an international tournament. So it should be a good one, and if you keep reading Kawowo, you'll get all the updates from the Lakeside Oval in Entebbe. So it should be an interesting week for Uganda cricket next week. And I hope that the girls can be able to come up with the goods. Right now, the under-19 boys also preparing for the World Cup qualifiers. They are playing against, I'm sure you've seen those updates on Kawowo. They are playing against Tanzania. They lost yesterday. They were not doing so well today against Tanzania. That should give them an indication, like Franklin has said, when you get a test of teams that come from outside. So the boys will be going to Nigeria at the back end of this month to try and qualify for Uganda's 4th appearance at the Under-19 World Cup. So again, it should be interesting. I think a lot of pressure on Emmanuel Isanez and Robinson Tree now, their second time to be in charge of the Under-19 team. Usually when you're not successful on your second, guys are like...
As Honorable Secretary.
And the management has changed.
Guys will be like, Tuwe Mukao. Guys, the producers, every week, they are not very happy with us because we run out of our time. But that has been our time this week on the Weekly Wowos. Anesta Korebirunji, our resident rugby expert. Franklin Kawero, the editor of Kawowo Sports. David Isabirye, the legend. The man, the myth, and the legend. Please
Nice
continue
to be
doing
here.
the good work. Yeah? You lead and we follow. You lead and we follow.
I think just like we did last week with Edwin Kyle Koli, Mr. Isabirye, you are not a guest here. We could even be your guest here. So,
I know.
Every time you get an opportunity to come to Kampala,
Maybe sometime we should do this in his
At the
peninsula
next
town.
side peninsula.
At the next side peninsula. But I've been your weekly host, Dennis Musali. Until next time, please keep reading Kawowo Sports.